these videos are a bit out of sync now. In the last video you saw me rebuilding this hub, ready to put it onto the vehicle, and it is now on the vehicle because 6 months ago I put it on the vehicle. Yes, would you believe, 6 months. I've now got my sheltered garage, and the reason why these videos are out of joint is I filmed some of the footage but not all of it because it was raining and I couldn't really film. So I'm going to use the footage for fitting this hub with fitting the left-hand hub, which will be coming up. But for the moment we're going to work on the left-hand hub. So in the interest of moving things forward and making my life easier, I came across a problem with the other side, which I asked for solutions on Instagram. Now, the way I used to do this was an extension, get this top caliper bolt, was using an extension bar through the springs, right, quite a long one to get through there. The problem with this vehicle is it's got 130 helper springs in here, so they're getting in the way. So in the past I'd go through phases where I just couldn't be asked in buying new tools for every job. I'd just get on with what I had. Now I prefer to, I want to do this a bit more properly, and particularly this is now an issue because I can't use the old method I've been using, and I do want to be able to torque these up because they're brake components. What I'd done on the other side to take this off was using the 2-spanner method. So here's the illustration of the problem. There's the normal typical socket, 1/2-inch drive, and this is not going to fit on in there. We could try and put a wobble bar, I've got a longer one as well, into here. It's not ideal though because it doesn't completely line up. There's always going to be an issue there. And of course the other consideration is that the bolt's going to come out, this is going to go move further and further that way. So a couple of options I'm looking at now. I've got this one, which is a universal socket, 13mm bihex socket. They go on there. The other option I've looked at is this one. Not entirely how it's not crow's foot, because buying crow's foot of these, getting a 13mm crow's foot with a bihex profile, they're quite expensive. You're looking at like 70 quid, and it's usually any kind of snap-on that would do something like that. This one's one called Kennedy, and I'm going to basically use these and see what I think. I've already taken the brake pipe off the caliper. Now in terms of this one, this is 1/2-inch drive, so yeah, there's quite a bit of access room there. This one's 3/8, and because it's universal, I'm not entirely sure that you're going to get much force into this because of the way you have to overcome the friction inside. We're going to use an extension bar on that one. I'm going to start with the 1/2-inch drive first because that's when I'm going to be using most of the torque, is at the beginning. And I've snapped 3/8 extension bars in the past trying to do this type of work. Ooh, yeah, that worked. Let's try and use actually that one's working quite nicely. Just got to adjust the socket a bit, I think. Obviously it's a bit harder because you're not using the full mechanical advantage of pivoting at the centre. This nut's getting a bit chewed up as well. Let's switch over to the 3/8 one. See how this goes. Yeah, the problem I have is a 3/8. I don't have a long 3/8, so that one feels like it could work. It's not. That's the interesting thing. It's not pivoting. It's moving in an arc around like that. So you do have to keep moving this. What's interesting about this, the other side had drilled and grooved discs, and this side isn't. And what I've seen here, down there is 0 clearance between the caliper and the brake disc, and we've got this groove. It looks like the brake disc has been rubbing on the caliper, which is very weird. And then all of a sudden you look at the disc in the caliper and you're like, huh, there's a big gap on this side and not on this side. And when you look at the brake disc, of the brake pads, piston's quite a way out, and the pad's thicker on this side, thinner on this side, and there's not much gap on the piston there. These discs are probably wrong, and the offset is wrong. What I did find on the other side is this fell out. When I took the caliper off, this fell out. It's a spacer. Yeah, it was a spacer essentially. And I got confused. I was like, why? I've never seen this before. It's not a part for a Land Rover, yet it had it. And then this side didn't have it, so I was confused on the other side. I thought, why did it have this? Or where did it fall from? I didn't exactly see where it fell from, but I'm only assuming it came from between the caliper and the bracket here. So that's probably why. This has been put back together with these brake discs without this spacer. And that's interesting. It makes me wonder, where are these brake discs from? They're probably 20 years old, and who knows, the aftermarket 20 years ago, they may have had stuff that was kind of just right, but then it wasn't an issue on the other side, rubbing, and these are totally different because they're not drilled and slotted. So my God, I'm glad I'm replacing all this stuff, and I'm glad I'm replacing the calipers as well, because something I've never particularly noticed, because I've never had the calipers off before. I've only had the half shafts out of these hubs. Classic case of an old Defender that's been modified. There we go. Look at the state of this. There's a big spider living down there. What you can't do with this is use a ratchet, because as you rotate the ratchet round, the angle will change, which is not what you want, because you always have to keep it, you know, at this angle out here, so you can't have it go back over here, because it will sit on the other side. So yeah, it's actually working very well. As you get the bolt comes further and further out, you just angle this more and more, and you can plenty of space to move this away, so you can pivot around the spring there. That's loose. Okay. For the other tool I bought, this 3/8 one, now that it's lighter, I can actually get some purchase on it. The UJ mechanism's slightly awkward. It doesn't flow particularly nicely. But it does work at this level. However, I think the fact that it's 3/8 means I wouldn't use it in this application. So I'm glad I bought both. It's been an interesting test, but this one's clearly come out on top. I pretty much used this one for the whole of the bolt unscrewing, and this one just really a cursory test at the end. This has got a lot more clearance. You've got a lot more flexibility in where you can position your wrench on there. This one is nice idea, but if it was in 1/2 inch and slightly shallower, I think it'd be better for this application. But this one comes out on top. Anyway, links in the description for this one. And if you've got any other tips on how to get this bolt out, or methods you use, I know some people use an angled head on their ratchet, so they use a normal shallow socket and then an angled head from here. I didn't want to have to buy another ratchet. I just prefer to get a different tool for the job. Join me in the next video when I try and deal with this one, which is completely rounded off.